Hello, beautiful. Today we are on chapter 9 of our Advent reading of the book of Luke, and I'm so glad you're here this morning. I'm going to read this right off of my phone screen. So we're going to read this so that you can see it really, really well. I had some trouble with Zoom the last couple of days, and I had trouble doing the overhead, and we're not going to let anything put a stop to this. So let's just do this way. Okay, let's get right into this. The ministry of the 12. Sorry, I had to catch my breath. Okay, verse 1. Then Jesus called the 12 together and gave them power and authority over all the demons and power to cure diseases. And he sent them out to proclaim the kingdom of God and to heal the sick. Take nothing for the journey, he told them. No staff, no bag, no bread, no money, no second tunic. Whatever house you enter, stay there until you leave that area. If anyone does not welcome you, shake the dust off your feet when you leave that town as a testimony against them. So what an interesting thing for Jesus to say. When my kids were little, well, I still have a little one, but when the other ones were little and they would fall, okay, wait, let me start this story over. Let me just start this story over. My oldest daughter, who's going to be 29, when she would fall, I would freak out, right? I was a new mom. I was young. I was like, oh my goodness, it's okay. It's okay. And at her daycare, one of the teachers said to me one day, you have got to quit babying her like that. You're going to regret it. Well, I took that to heart. And so with the next several kids, I was like, when they get hurt, I'm just like, brush it off. You're okay. And guess what? They get up and they brush it off. And so I kind of feel like this is what Jesus was saying to his disciples here. Like, you know what? Just brush it off. Get up. Keep moving on. Don't let it knock you down. It's okay. Anyway, verse 6. So they set out and went from village to village, preaching the gospel and healing people everywhere. So I often wonder why Jesus gave them the ability to heal at this time. And I truly believe that this is because he wanted the gospel to be able to spread, and he knew that he could not do all of it on his own. And that's why then he later sent the Apostle Paul out and gave him the ability to do great things, because he wanted people to know that the gospel was real, that Jesus was real. So he gave the apostle these abilities. I do not believe that people have these abilities today. Doesn't mean they can't pray over you, but God does the healing, right? I know he did it then too, but you know what I mean. Okay, verse 7. When Herod the Tetrarch heard about all that was happening, he was perplexed, for some were saying that John had risen from the dead, others that Elijah had appeared, and still others that a prophet of old had risen. I beheaded John, Herod said, but who is this man I hear such things about? And he kept trying to see Jesus. So it does not share it in the book of Luke. I am not sure which book of the Bible it shares it in, but Herod, his half, I don't know how she was related to him. Herodias was maybe his daughter, and I don't even know what I'm talking about. But Herodias was a young lady, and she was dancing for the king. And her mother and her came up with this plan together to have John the Baptist beheaded and have his head brought on a serving platter to the dinner party. And so that is what Herod did, which is terribly disgusting. But that is why here he says, I beheaded John. So the feeding of the 5,000, verse 10, then the apostles returned and reported to Jesus all that they had done. Taking them away privately, he withdrew to a town called Bethsaida, but the crowds found out and followed him. He welcomed them and spoke to them about the kingdom of God, and he healed those who needed healing. As the day neared its end, the 12 came to Jesus and said, dismiss the crowd so they can go to the surrounding villages and countryside for lodging and provisions, for we are in a desolate place here. Now listen to this. But, here's the big old but, right? Big old but, verse 13. But Jesus told them, you give them something to eat. We only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, they answered, unless we go and buy food for all these people. There were about 5,000 men. Okay, that doesn't even include children and wives. This is men, right? 5,000. He told his disciples, have them sit down in groups of about 50 each. They did so, and everyone was seated. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, And looking up to heaven, Jesus spoke a blessing and broke them. Then he gave them to the disciples to set before the people. Now listen to this. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. So good, so amazing. Okay, verse 18. One day, as Jesus was praying in private, see how he does this? He sneaks away. He sneaks away, girl. And the disciples were with him. He questioned them, "Who do the crowds say I am?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others that a prophet of old has arisen." "But what about you?" Jesus asked. Who do you say I am?" Peter answered, "The Christ of God." Don't you love that? Verse 21, Jesus strictly warned them not to tell this to anyone. The Son of Man must suffer many things. Now listen to how he told them this. He strictly warned them not, okay? He said he must be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes. He must be killed, and on the third day be raised to life. Okay, here's another one. Take up your cross. Then Jesus said to all of them, "If anyone wants to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me." That is what we are called to do. If we are true followers of Jesus Christ, if we are saved, if we are heaven bound, we will take up our cross daily and follow him. It's not easy. It is not easy, this Christian life, but this is what we choose to do. We deny ourselves daily. Verse 24, for whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. Okay, see what he's saying here? He's saying that you give up your life when you become a Christ follower because you do everything for him. You no longer do it for yourself. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world, yet lose or forfeit his very self? If anyone is ashamed of me and my words, the Son of Man will be ashamed of him when he comes in glory, and in the glory of the Father and of the holy angels. But I tell you truthfully, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see the kingdom of God. Hey, we do not want to ever deny Christ, because he says that when it comes to that time, that he will deny us in front of his Father, and we do not ever want that. We need to be proud that we are Christians. Verse 28, about 8 days after Jesus had said these things, he took with him Peter, John, and James, and went up on a mountain to pray. As he was praying, the appearance of his face changed, and his clothes became radiantly white. Suddenly, 2 men, Moses and Elijah, began talking with Jesus. They appeared in glory and spoke about his departure, which he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. Isn't that fascinating? So fascinating. Meanwhile, Peter and his companions were overcome by sleep, but when they awoke, they saw Jesus' glory and the 2 men standing with him. As Moses and Elijah were leaving, Peter said to Jesus, "Master, is it good for us to be here? Let us put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He did not know what he was saying. While Peter was speaking, a cloud appeared and enveloped them, and they were afraid as they entered the cloud, and a voice came from the cloud saying, "This is my son, whom I have chosen. Listen to him!" Exclamation mark. This is God talking. After the voice had spoken, only Jesus was present with them. The disciples kept this to themselves, and in those days, they did not tell anyone what they had seen. Isn't this kind of funny? They probably thought they were nuts. I mean, they literally probably thought that they were crazy, right? If they saw this, and so it's funny that they didn't tell anyone. Okay, the next day, when they came down from the mountain, Jesus was met by a large crowd. Suddenly, a man in the crowd cried out, "Teacher, I beg you to look at my son, for he is my only child. A spirit keeps seizing him, and he screams. Abruptly, it throws him into convulsions so that he foams at the mouth. It keeps mauling him and rarely departs from him. I begged your disciples to drive it out, but they were unable." "O unbelieving and perverse generation," Jesus replied, "how long must I remain with you and put up with you? Bring your son here." Isn't that funny? So they say Jesus is sinless, and yet we hear things like this and we think, well, this doesn't sound very kind. But Jesus had a purpose for every word he spoke. Even while the boy was approaching, the demon slammed him to the ground in a convulsion. But Jesus rebuked the unclean spirit, healed the boy, and gave him back to the Father. And they were all astonished at the greatness of God. While everyone was marveling at all that Jesus was doing, he said to his disciples, "Let these words sink into your ears. The Son of Man is about to be delivered into the hands of men." But they did not understand this statement. It was veiled from them so that they could not comprehend it, and they were afraid to ask him about it. Listen to that. God can veil things from us. He can keep things, right, so that we don't understand what they mean, and he will let us know at the right time. Then it says in verse 46, then an argument started among the disciples as to which of them would be the greatest. But Jesus, here it is again, knowing the thoughts of their hearts, had a little child stand beside him. Can you just picture Jesus? Come on, little child, come here. And he said to them, whoever welcomes this little child in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. For whoever is the least among all of you, he is the greatest. Master, said John, we saw someone driving out demons in your name, and we tried to stop him because he does not accompany us. Do not stop him, Jesus replied, for whoever is not against you is for you. Now listen to this verse, okay? We give such a bad rap to people who teach the Bible today. But if they are teaching and preaching that Jesus is God and in the flesh, and Jesus is incarnate, and if we are saved by grace, then we are going to heaven to be with Jesus forever. If they are teaching us those things, but they are not doing it exactly the way that we feel like they should be, Jesus says here, do not stop them. He says, for whoever is not against you is for you. Like, it's still benefiting people, even if it's not exactly the way that we think it should be preached. As long as they aren't giving you false doctrine. And I'm talking about the doctrine essentials, right? These things that are non-negotiable. Those are what truly matters. If they are against those, then they are against Christ, and we should not want them to be teaching. Verse 51, as the day of his ascension approached, Jesus resolutely set out for Jerusalem. He sent messengers on ahead who went into a village of the Samaritans to make arrangements for him. But the people there refused to welcome him because he was heading for Jerusalem. When the disciples, James and John, saw this, they asked, Lord, do you want us to call down fire from heaven to consume them? But Jesus turned and rebuked them, and he and his disciples went on to another village. As they were walking along the road, someone said to Jesus, I will follow you wherever you go. Jesus replied, foxes have dens, and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. Then he said to another man, follow me. The man replied, Lord, first let me go and bury my father. But Jesus told him, let the dead bury their own dead. You, however, go and proclaim the kingdom of God. Wow, that's something crazy to say too, huh? But he had a purpose. He knew exactly what he was saying, and he knew exactly how the people were going to take it, and he knew exactly how we are going to take it today. He's saying he comes first. Above all else, he comes first. Verse 61, still another said, I will follow you, Lord, but first let me bid farewell to my family. Then Jesus declared, no one who puts his hands to the plow and then looks back is fit for the kingdom of God. That is so good, so good. When we commit to him, there is no turning back. There is no turning back. We put everything, everyone in our life above, let him be above all of those things, right? And he's going to do great things through us. He is going to do great things through us. And it will benefit those people in your life more by you putting Christ first. So today, I want you to really think about that and put Christ on the throne of your heart where he belongs. And I will see you tomorrow. Bye.